My name is Patrick Clark. I'm from Ireland originally, and I'm working in Brazil. And I've been there for the last 33 years. The Holy Ghost congregation is the religious congregation that I belong to. We are called Chiffonniers de l'Église, the rag pickers of the church. Go where nobody wants to go.
And where is it that you go that no one wants to go?
Well, I have to be careful about this because it might sound rather heroic, and I think the heroes are the people we go to, not us. But we try to be alongside those who are dispossessed in any way.
And where are you exactly in Brazil?
I'm in the city of São Paulo, which is a city of 20 million people. It's thought to be the third largest in the world. And the shanty towns, or favelas as they're called there, is the place where I've spent my time there in Brazil.
Tell me about the project that you set up then with the people and with their ideas.
We started off praying, I wanted my work to be faith-based, so I joined their prayers. And in their prayers we were always surrounded by rats and by the stench of sewers. And I wondered, did their prayer and their faith have anything to do with this, and could it change it? And they said no. And I said, why not? And they said, well, we have no power, we have no influence, we are ignorant. And I would say, well, who made that chair there? And they'd say, oh, Pedro, and oh yeah, and the table, yeah, they made that too, and the house. Oh, they got together, and their brothers and their fathers and their sons, yeah, and you could do all that, and you can't do anything about the sewers and the rats. And gradually, over the space of a year or so, we drew up a plan, and we had the whole area divided into 52 sections. And we didn't have any technology except the most primitive kind, spades and hoes and hands. And we started digging. And 5 years later, we had a sewerage system underground. And they then believed that they could change things. And that's where the other things came from.
Those other things are not just about digging sewers and building tables, though, are they?
No, we then built a creche, and then we built a community hall, and then we built we are still building the Centre for Culture, which started off in a little pokey place and is now almost a campus with 5 buildings and mosaics and beauty and children there working in the different art forms. And respected in the community, a focal point in the community. And eventually we got a piece of land out in the forest, which we call the City of the Angels, but that was the name it had before we found it, so we kept it. Even though sometimes you'd want to call these kids devils, you say no. Like John Bosco said, there's no such thing as a bad child, only a child that hasn't been loved enough.
Art isn't something that people would think would be an immediate priority for a favela or a shantytown.
No, we've often been asked, why not the soup kitchen? Why not, any of these things? But people do not live only on bread. They live on their soul, their heart, their spirit. Why haven't these children the right to the inheritance, which is art, music, and all these things?
And the world outside is in great contrast to that. Are you frightened?
I don't think about it, Mary. I just get on doing it. And one day I asked the Cardinal to come and say Mass. He said, yeah, sure. And I went to collect him, and we drove through the city, reached the favela, and got out. And I deliberately took him right through all the most difficult and dangerous places I could find. And as we walked through, and these guys standing there leaning against the wall with their guns, when they saw, they sort of advanced towards us, shook his hand, shook my hand, and we passed on our way.
The kids then get solace and spirit-enhancing activities through their art, but they don't just stay in the favela, because you mentioned the City of the Angels. What City of the Angels? Where is it? Why do you have it?
It's about an hour away from the favela. It's way out in what's left of the Atlantic forest. It's a very damaged area. It's a place that I found after years of searching, because I don't know, this dream was in me to find this place and to make this link between city and land and country and nature. And because in the favela you don't see a blade of grass, nothing, just concrete and paper thin walls and narrow alleyways and no space. One of the great human geographers of our time is a Brazilian, and he said, without space you cannot be humanized. So having in mind all that, we organize these special education days for groups of kids from the centre out to this place on the land. And it's like a well-organized experience. They're not just dumped there. It's not just about leisure. It's about education, it's about awareness, it's about responsibility, and it's about spirituality. And so they do workshops in all of those areas. They have guided walks through the forest, and they see the animals, they know the animals. They usually finish the experience by planting a tree ceremonially. They do painting and sculpture and stuff while they're there, and they put their reflections into that. And they leave some of the paintings behind, and they take the rest back to the centre. And over time they build up a new sense of how they as children can be responsible for the planet, even in such a horrendous place as the favela, where there's no space to be anything. But they are becoming protagonists for peace. And they're also becoming guardians of the small plots of gardens that we are putting around the centre, which are systematically destroyed by other kids. So they're coming along and they're being able to ask these kids, why are they treading, as Yeats would say, treading on my dreams, and what's the point? And gradually these kids that are not in the centre are becoming aware of how they might collaborate in the protection of their own environment.
It's a really expensive project to run as well, isn't it?
Oh, Mary, it is. It's such a hard thing, really, to survive and to think how. This is why I have to go around the world with my begging bowl to try and keep it going. It's costing us about 7,000 quid a month to run this. But then we have these teachers to pay. See, we do work with trained people and not volunteers, because for many reasons the child needs stability, the child needs people who are there, and it has experienced so much abandonment in many forms that we do not want people coming and going. We want stability. That's what they don't have. We need people who are not just professionals, but who are caring, who are passionate about what they do, who are able to be loving, and who have certain basic values that the project is trying to promote. And they have to be paid justly. I'm still hoping, I'm still relying on Providence to find some solution, because I don't know.
And anybody could help in any way, big or small?
Yeah, well, we've always valued the crumbs, because without them there's no loaf, and the loaf is to be shared. And people, even my own mother, when she was alive, she used to give me her pension. And, well, she was always giving things away anyway. She had nothing, and she never wanted anything. And she'd say, here, take that, I don't want it. So you'd weep. I mean, the number of times I've wept. I'd say, Mother, what's here? What's in this envelope? Never mind, take it. And I'd look in and I'd see the notes sort of flattened out where she saved them and stuck them in there, And I'd take it back, and that would be her contribution to keeping it going, And the people in parishes and schools, kids in schools that I visit, they do non-uniform days, and they'll do bazaars, and they'll do all sorts of gigs and things. And out of that, a few hundred quid, that's what this project has survived on. And it is providential, because we've been going for 20 years, this project. But for how long more, I don't know. If somebody wanted to give us a real good dig out, we'd say, thanks a million, you're part of our dream.